it right in every spot. I mean, from their 5 position to their 4 position to the 2 position, 1 position. You look at it, they got 2 guys in every spot. You got 2 guys in every spot that produce and produce efficiently. And I think that's hard to get in college basketball nowadays with as much turnover as there is. So it's, the good news is that they're a really good team, and I think sometimes that pressure can build up on you too. You come into Laramie, and you come into Laradice, and you're just down at the pit. You travel to two places that are a little bit difficult to get to in certain circumstances. But I don't expect Utah State to show up any other way than their best. I tell that to my guys all the time. You should never expect anybody to show up any other way than their best. And that's what they'll be. They're playing for a lot right now. So there's no extra motivation for those guys, and there's no extra motivation for us. We've defended well the last 2 games from the 3-point line, holding teams at 17%. Found a little bit of our defensive identity back from guard to 3. I told you we can give up one or the other, right? You can let teams score in the paint, and get a higher 2 percentage, or you can, let teams score in the 3 and not give up the paint. Just the way we're built better to guard the 3 than we are the paint. And so getting back to defending the arc has been huge, and then we're 5-1 at home on Saturdays. So I don't know what that means, but that's the Nick Seaman stat of the day: 5-1 at home on Saturdays. I love stats like that. So why not be 6-1 this Saturday and have a great crowd for a really good Utah State team that's going to be playing their last game here in Laradice.
How you kind of get some of these guys to maybe draw a line in the sand and try and defend without falling? Obviously, that's been kind of a recurring issue, and then obviously with Leland last game, that's kind of makes a huge difference.
There's not a simple answer for a complicated question. Okay. Alex, I'll tell you that right now. It's like when somebody asks you, what are you going to get at Prairie Rose? Oh. Right?
I usually know.
That's a complicated question. You can't give a simple answer. There's a lot of good things on the menu at Prairie Rose. Okay. I know you go there a lot. And so what I say about this is, if you're a student of the game, anybody out there in the multiverse, I want you to watch the CSU game. And I want you to watch it with a very objective eye, not a subjective eye, an objective eye of how physical that game was. Okay? And the lack of calls in that game, which I don't mind. Let me be clear on this. I don't mind. I don't mind a physical game as long as it's the same way all the way through, which it was. And then go watch San Diego State game or another game along the lines and watch how it was a physical game, but it was officiated like it was a physical game. They were called fouls. Just go watch games and try to put yourself in the situation of a coach or a team, and you have to adapt to how the game's being called. That's the thing for us, is adapt to how the game's being called. Every time you go into a game, you're going to have officials are human beings. They're just like all of us. They can have good days, they can have bad days. We're not supposed to have good or bad days as officials or coaches or players. We're supposed to be, right on every time, but it is what it is. And you just have to adapt to how the game's being called and how the crew's working it. And I think that's the art of this. If there was a science to any of this, then we'd be sitting here and saying, well, that's that, and it's cut and dry. There's an art to all this stuff. There's an art to adjusting as a coach to how the game's being called. There's an art as a player to adjust to how the game's being called. And if it was consistent across the board, then I think you could show up every night the same way and be like, wow, that game was called the way it was called last game, so on and so forth. Did you see the Fresno UNLV game? I mean, there wasn't a game being played. I told you, it's like watching a boxing match where 2 guys just clinch the entire time. Break it up. And the guys are like, is anybody going to land a punch? Well, they did like the last, 30, just that worse of defenders nowadays, that they just foul every time down the floor. And so to that point, I guess it's like I said, there's no simple answer to a complicated question. The great ones adjust, and you have to be able to adapt to how the game's being called. And I'll say this, what I fight for on the sidelines is just, fairness, equality. Like I don't want it to be equal, I want it to be fair. Right? So if it's the game's being officiated one way, I want it to be officiated that way on both sides. That's it. If it's physical, great. If it's handsy and they're calling them, great. Call them every time. I don't care if it's 60 fouls or it's 13 fouls. I want it to be fair on both sides. Which I think when I watch games and I say like some games where we have a lot of fouls in our games and the refs called it on both sides, that was fair. I watched the CSU game and the refs let it go a little bit. It's fair. So I think it all goes back to just adjusting and adapting.
Coach, 0-5 in your last 5 road games. What is the level of concern, and how do you get your guys to have that kind of warrior mentality on the road so that they're a little more competitive?
I don't even. I wouldn't even know that stat. I wouldn't even look at like we're 0-5 or this. I just think of the next game. Try not to look at the last game, passes in the past, just moving on. But you know, we're plugging a lot of holes right now. We're playing guys in different spots, injuries, sicknesses, health. We're going to be a completely different team on Saturday than we were on whenever we played Tuesday. Yeah, I don't even know what day it is. So how can I tell you what we did in our last 5 games? You know, just because like that's just the way it goes right now. You got to try to find a way to win your next game, home or road or the likes. We got to find ways to do it. But man, just playing good teams too on the road. These aren't like cupcakes out there now. Like this is still a good league. I mean, I'll say this: the bottom has risen too in this league. There's one thing in the Horizon thing when I got the job at Green Bay was like they wanted the bottom to come up to make it a better seed for everybody else. You got the team that got in the tournament, and so I think the bottom has risen in this league and it's gotten better. And so the nights, on the road there's no off nights, but to that point, Deion, love to win every game you play, road or home, but we gotta get healthy. It'd be nice to get healthy, get some bodies back versus losing bodies. Every time I step back on the floor, we're losing a body.
Do you have any updates on the injury front and how much you look forward to that bye after Justin?
We'll know more. Boo's day to day. Obviously Matia's still out, Jared's still out. We'll know more on what's going on with Gavin here after today as well. He took a little hit to his hand against San Diego State, so we'll know more on him too. So there's a reality we can have 8 scholarship players on Saturday, 2 walk-ons and Talent and Garrett. So I mean it's just the pokes are a little bit, they're feeling a little bit right now. And like I said, Abu's got to rest and recover his Achilles, and he's day to day, so we'll see where he's at. So we're gonna be a completely different team Saturday too. So when it comes to past 5 games, next 5 games, like I don't have enough bandwidth to focus on that. I can only focus on the next one that's in front of us because we got to solve those problems and create new opportunities for guys.
Well, that's going to make it a little bit tougher maybe this time around against Utah State. They scored 58 bench points, I think, against you in the first game. So the substitutions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure there will be a bench to sub in there. So for us, and we'll be different than when we played for those guys the last time.
How do you maybe guard Colby King a little bit better?
We guard him.
Yeah.
If you want to know how to guard Colby King better, you guard him. We didn't guard anybody last game.
Okay.
So they're going to come in here thinking like it's going to be a practice for them. They're shooting out there with just some guys, with stick hands contested. We're actually going to try to guard Utah State this time. That would probably be a really smart thing to do if you're a college coach, is to have a plan where you guard somebody. Sometimes the best plan to guard is not to guard. I heard that once from Rex Walters. He said sometimes the best defense is no defense, and that's because you're not guarding the right guys. You got to guard guys like Kobe King and MJ Collins, man. They're pretty good players. Mason Falls, pretty good players. So we'll try harder on the defensive end this time.
Yeah, Coach, how nice was it to see Uriah kind of step in last game? I think he had 5 assists and kind of been a rough stretch for him in the last couple of games, but stepped in nice with Leland.
I appreciated the way he shared the basketball and got 5 assists. He still has to work on his shot profile. So out of his 10 shots were low shot quality shots. So that's why he was 3 for 10. So for a guy who's predominantly been efficient in his career, told us, like, you're right, he's got to be more efficient on the offensive end. We don't want guys to score 10 points on 10 shots, right? You got to be a lot more efficient in the way you're trying to score the basketball, which is a testament to San Diego State's defense too. But to that point, he got it back with the way he was assisting and setting guys up. And we don't have the luxury or the margins to be able to not have guys be at their best when we're playing really good teams. It's going to be really hard to win with one hand tied behind your back. And so Leland knows he's got to be better. Nas knows he has to be better. those guys that you got to count on every single night. Pressure is a privilege. Pressure is a privilege. That's the mark of being a guy who's highly accounted on every single night. Is you got to show up, regardless of the opponent and regardless of where you're playing.
Has Noah's been a little bit too passive the last 2 games?
Yeah, you know what? I don't think people realize this, but you know, freshmen hit certain walls, and when he got his concussion, he came back. Right after he got cleared from his concussion, he also got the flu/strep, and he lost 17 pounds in 2 weeks. So guys spent an entire summer building his body up to play at this level, and you can tell when a guy loses 17 pounds, like from a sickness, that's gonna hurt you. I don't care who you are. If you're playing at 190 and you lose 17 pounds, you know, and you're down at 173, you know, if you're playing at 200 and you lose 70 pounds, you're down at 183, that's gonna affect you. It's gonna affect your stamina. It's gonna affect your ability to play longer. It's gonna affect your ability to handle impact. You know, at the point of contact when he's going to finish at the rim, you notice like now his rim finishes aren't quite there at the rim. They're a little bit away. And that's tougher to, when you're playing against bigger, longer, stronger, faster dudes, you got to have everything about you, right? And so he's still getting back to that, which I got a little bit of grace there, man, for freshmen that are going through it. And that's just part of the process. But, you know, you never wish any of that stuff upon anybody, but it's not an excuse, it's just the facts. You know, there's no way to put back on 17 pounds after you lose it in 2 weeks like that. You can drink as much water as you want, eat as many steaks as you want, but like to go get that mass that you worked so hard on, you know, gaining in the summer, that's a tough load right there. It's a tough blow. Multiverse.
About the bumps and bruises your guys are taking, and ask when are they going to be the aggressor? Is that not happening because of the physical limitations of this group, or are your guys just too nice and you're looking for a tone-setting dog?
I don't think they're too nice. I do think there are physical limitations. I mean, I think it's obvious when you look at certain opponents. You know, we're in a lot of ways Wyoming. You know, until we take that next step for us, we're getting, you know, a lot of ways developmental guys. And you think about it, Mattia was part of our process. He's been in college for 4 years. He's 6'7", 240, right? So he loses 17 pounds. He still looks pretty freaking big, you know, and he can still handle a little bit of a blow. But when a freshman who's part of the process of becoming a more mature guy loses 17, or, you know, you go out there and you go get Demarion Dennis, who, you know, we try to get him to eat as many meals as he can a day. He's going to put on a certain amount of weight, but he ain't going to put on enough to get to where he needs to get to compared to some of these guys. So there are physical limitations with guys. You know, you get a guy like Keanu Saxon, who's a fifth-year senior, he's probably at where he's at. There ain't much you're changing or growing. You know, you're not putting a ton on in about 9 months. And so that's why I always talk about Jimmy Edelman. He talks about training age. So you have your age, you're 24 years old, but let's say you transferred 3 times or 4 times, and you lost 3 months each time you transferred of training. So now instead of being 24 with a 24-year-old training age, you're 24 with a 23-year-old training age. Or because you lost an entire year of development at some point. And let alone being a guy who maybe stayed at a school for 9 months. You know they didn't lift when they were going in the portal. So if they didn't lift while they're going in the portal, they lost half a year of training in that 3 to 4 months or 5 months before they got back on the next campus. And so you're getting guys that are, we just lost all the multiverse here on this.
Weird.
Yeah, you're getting guys that, you know, finish it, but lost. Got you back? It says, start AI companion to assist your meeting. Would you like that? No. Okay. You guys hear me out there? Yeah, guys are losing training years because they're not staying at places long enough. And to that point, like, you know, San Diego State guys, a lot of those guys have been there a couple years. You know, I know this Jeremiah Odom, when you look at the way he's worked, like J.O., he still kind of looks, he's transferred a lot. It's nothing against J.O., but he still kind of looks the same, you know, as far as when he was here. And so, yes, there's a physical limitation. Short answer to your question is there's a physical limitation that some of our guys have. We are smaller. But, you know, if you want to go get bigger and better and older, that costs money. And I've always said this, man. I'd hate to be the 2 worst years of a player's career and spend 2 years developing and pouring into them and trying to, and Jimmy working the crap out of them, and then they look big and strong and they're juniors and they go off and play their 2 best years somewhere else. That's a hard pill to swallow as a coach, but it is what we get paid to do. That is our job. I'm not going to have them sit here and be like, well, I don't want you to get any bigger, faster, stronger because I want to screw the next guy. You know, like that'd be a hell of a deal right there. Sandbag your own programs and spite the next guy. Should take him. He had to put on a pound in 3 years since he's been here. You know, like good luck. It is what it is. And like I said, until we take that next step, you know, we're going to have guys that look a certain way versus the top half of the league. I think we look like, you could put us in a gym versus Air Force and put us in a gym versus San Jose and put us in a gym versus, like, we look like some of those guys because we're all pretty much got the same budget, really close. But
I know it's easier said than done, Sonny, but you know, every year is its own soap opera, right? So you see these guys and you think, what do I want next? Are you looking for more of, you know, like I said, easier said than done, but more of a dog like a Noah Reynolds type who not only has the skills, but has it up here and has it here?
You know, Noah Reynolds became a real, like he was a good player, but when he became a dog, it was like Green Bay and TCU, right? Junior, senior year. So freshman year here, he helped us win some games when Kenny Foster went down, when Ducell went down with the hamstring at Utah State. Flew him on the plane and got him down to Nevada. You know, scored 7 points, and he had some of that mentality in him. But that was a good freshman stepping up that didn't need him to carry the load. You know, got a lot better his sophomore year, but still had some ups and downs. A junior year at Green Bay for us, like became a dog. So once again, to that point, had it. There's guys that have alpha in him. Like Nas has alpha in him. He has some dog in him. But for that dog to fully become like, you know, a mature dog that knows the rules of the house now, you know, and can be an inside-outside dog and doesn't bark at strangers, but goes and bites, you know, the enemy. You know, you're like, oh, that dog is trained well. Like he plays well with little kids, and then he goes and gets after the bad guys, and he protects your house. That takes a while. That takes time. And smart teams that you're watching, they're going and getting some real dogs that have went through it a little bit. You take Utah State's roster, MJ Collins has been around, right? And Noah Reynolds was winning games down at TCU for those guys. MJ Collins is now winning games for Utah State with those guys. And they're bringing in dudes who've been around the block a little bit. But conversely, like I said, you know, that dog costs a little bit now too. And so I would, easier said than done, love to go find those mentalities. But you can find the mentality, right? We can go recruit and we can go find the guys with the mentality. There's certain guys on our roster who have the mentality, but are they men yet? So that mentality and being a man is what makes you a real dog. Because you can have the mentality, but you're just a little boy right now and trying to be a big dog, just a little pup trying to be a big dog. You don't quite get it yet. And so we're hoping that these guys can stick around here until they're big dogs and have that mentality as well.
Well, you've talked on a couple occasions about long scoring, grounds killing you. Is there anything that you guys can do as a coaching staff schematically to help that? Or does it really boil down to the players just have to make plays?
You know, I'd love to be able to sit there and joystick it and call it, you know, we call a lot of actions and run some stuff and you get good looks. I've yet to see a coach go score that basket out there. You know, like I said, that's players got to play at some point too, right? And there's a lot of teams out there. We could draw something up and it can work great. You still got to make the read versus the switch. Make the read versus the coverage. There's levels to this. Are they dropping? Are they blitzing? Are they hedging? Are they switching? You know, do you see the hot spot plugged in so you get to throw corner skip? And can you throw the corner skip because you're tall enough to see over the help, you know, or see over the blitz or see over the coverage? You know, are they locking and trailing you on a pin down so you curl it into the help? Do you see the pocket pass right after you got the curl? Are they shooting it? Do you got to fade it? There's a lot of crap that players have to be able to do that we teach in our program. Players have to be able to make reads at some point. You know, quarterback throws the ball to a wide receiver and he misses it, drops it. Ain't nobody going in there and be like, is there anything you can do, coach, to, you know, help that receiver catch the pass? Is there anything you can do, coach, to help that player make the shot? At last I checked, those guys out there have to, now if I'm just calling an awful game, and I've called some awful games, and I'm sitting there like, I called a bad game. I've called an awful game, we don't think we didn't find the advantage, we couldn't get the matchup we wanted. Like, shoot, we're sitting there, most of our problems on offense don't come from missed shot scoring routes. They come from turnover routes. So that you're turning the ball over and you're letting a team go on the run. If you look back at the film, first time we played San Diego State here, 6 of our last 10 possessions were turnovers. So I know a coach doesn't pass the ball from the bench, but maybe I have to put the ball in the hands of somebody else better. That's something I could do. Put the hands in your playmaker. But when you put your hands in the ball of the playmaker, you put the ball in the hands of your playmaker, and your playmaker turns it over, what else can the coach do? Right? So like, I like to do a lot of football analogies, but it's like, your thing just shut off again. Your Zoom.
Must be the internet.
Hey guys, back. Okay, it's good stuff here. I wish I had a better answer for you, Brian. Like that I could say, well, how can I help you score? Part of that too is going. Players are going against players and mano. I know this. I've seen Utah State run some really good stuff. Really good stuff. And I've seen them play against the same teams we play against, and that good stuff not work. And then MJ Collins gets the ball at the top of the key and takes a one dribble step back over 3 guys and bangs it. And people are like, this is an unbelievable action. What a set Calhoun ran. Good players make good coaches. Good players make good coaches. And when you got, last year, I looked really smart when Obi Egbin would make some of the hardest shots in college basketball. He was the toughest shot maker in the whole land. That's why he was valuable in the portal. You'd look in there and be like, look, shot quality, low. Efficiency, high. So when you can have a guy who takes tough shots and makes tough shots, that shot to send it to overtime versus Fresno wasn't an easy shot. It looked like we drew up something special. That was not. We just hit a tough one. And so you got to tip your cap to some of those guys. And that's, once again, when I felt we were right and we were healthy and we had 12 bodies and we were playing 12 guys, and we had a ton of different ways we could go with matchups and lineups, and Adam Herrick could come off the bench and just be like this spark plug where he'd go hit 2 threes, and next thing you know, Matia's in there going and getting no boards, and we're demoralizing in a lot of ways. That was what made this team special, was the connectivity of the dirty dozen, so to speak. Well, now we're down to Elite 8, all right? So when you're losing 4 of your guys, you don't get all the weaponry that you have. I'm looking at my little